Right now, people are talking about this new GST rebate for first-time homebuyers. And you're probably hearing something like, buy up to 1.5 million and save a ton in tax. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying this is not GST or tax advice. So that statement is not exactly wrong, but it's also not the full truth. Because where this actually helps you and where buyers can completely misunderstand it are going to be two very different things. And that matters, especially here in the Okanagan, where pricing changes the conversation altogether and fast. I'm Laura Reners with Remax Vernon Salt Fowler, and today I'm going to break this down for you. What is the new GST rebate, how it actually works, and who it could help? We'll talk about a little bit of the math when you purchase real property and whether transfer tax still applies if you're a first-time home buyer in BC. What this rebate actually is. First, this is a federal GST rebate. This is not the same thing as BC property transfer tax, and it only applies to certain homes. We are talking about newly built homes, substantially renovated homes, or certain owner-built homes, so not your typical resale properties. If you're thinking of buying resale detached houses, resale townhouses, or resale condos, this GST conversation isn't going to benefit you. GST is 5%, so on paper, the savings can look massive. If we break this down, on an $800,000 new home, 5% GST is $40,000. On a $1 million home, 5% is $50,000. This is real money, which is exactly why people are getting really excited about it. The part that most people are saying loosely, this is where the messaging starts to get a little bit sloppy. You'll hear it applies up to 1.5 million. And technically, yes, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get a full exemption all the way up to 1.5 million. Here's the actual breakdown. Up to 1 million, you can qualify for 100% rebate of the GST to a maximum of 50,000. Between 1 million and 1.5, the rebate is going to start phasing out. At 1.5 million or more, there is no rebate. So the clean way to think about this, under 1 million is the full benefit zone. However, between 1 million and 1.5, that is starting to shrink. At 1.5 million and above, it's gone. The nuance matters a lot because buyers hear up to 1.5 million and they assume they're getting a huge break, 1.2 million or 1.3 million, when in the reality, it's a lot different. Real numbers buyers can understand. Let's put numbers around that. At 900,000, the GST is 45,000. If you qualify, that could be a very effective rebate. At 1 million, the GST is 50,000, and that's a full rebate ceiling. At 1.1, you are already in the phase-out section. At 1.250, you are halfway between 1 million and 1.5. So the rebate is roughly half of the maximum, which is about 25,000. At 1.4 million, the remaining benefit is much smaller. And at 1.5, it's zero. That is why saying it applies up to 1.5 million without explaining the phasing is actually a little bit misleading. Now let's make this real with a $1.2 million example. A lot of buyers hear the number and they think perfect, still qualifying, which they do. So let's do another example. So on a $1.2 million home, 5% GST is 60,000. Now the phase-out range runs from 1 million to 1.5 million. A $1.2 million purchase is 200,000 into the 500,000 phase-out band. That means you are 40% of the way through the phase-out. So you would have about 60% of the maximum rebate left. 60% of the 50,000 maximum rebate is about 30,000. So instead of thinking you're saving 60,000, the real savings may be closer to 30,000, which is still a lot of money. Let's not forget that. Which also means you are still paying about $30,000 of GST out of pocket. This is where buyers think they're winning, but they're still paying 30,000. They just feel a lot better about it. Why this matters in the Okanagan. Now let's bring this back into reality in the markets like Vernon, Kelowna, and parts of Salmon Arm. If you are looking at the brand new detached homes, a lot of them are already over 1 million. That means many buyers shopping detached new construction, you're already not in the benefit zone. You may be in the partial benefit zone, and that's a different conversation again. Where this starts to look stronger is often with new condos and new townhouses, because those are the product types that are more likely to land under that $1 million mark. So yes, there can be real benefits here. But the benefit is not spread evenly across all property types. In practical terms, this rebate often helps first-time buyers, but again, more in the condo and townhouse segment than in the regular detached segment because the prices are just too high now. Quick pit stop. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we're posting new videos just like this one every single week. And remember, whether you're looking to buy in 9 days or 90 days, or if you're just curious about the area that we call home, don't forget to like this video, call, text, or email us and just add salt. Now let's talk about property transfer tax, which is two different things. This is where buyers can get a little bit mixed up. GST and property transfer tax are not the same thing. GST is a federal and usually tied to new construction. Property transfer tax, or PTT, is provincial, and in BC it applies to most home purchases when the title is registered. So you can absolutely be in a situation where you're buying a new home, looking at the GST rebate, and need to understand whether or not the home has property transfer tax as well. And for first-time buyers, that second piece matters. Where property transfer tax came from. A quick piece of background here, because I think it gives useful context for this. Property transfer tax in BC was introduced in 1987. It was not designed as a gift to buyers, as you may think. It was introduced as a government revenue tool. So when people talk about first-time buyer exemptions today, it is helpful to understand what that really means. You are not getting some magical bonus. You are potentially avoiding a cost that exists because the province decided to tax the transaction itself. Does PTT still apply if you are a first-time home buyer? Again, sometimes yes, sometimes no. BC does have a first-time home buyers program for property transfer tax, but the thresholds are much lower than many buyers assume. To qualify, there are buyer qualifications like citizenship or permanent residency, BC permanent residency rules, and you cannot have ever previously owned a principal residence anywhere in the world. But there are also property rules. The property must be your principal residence, generally less than 0.5 hectares or smaller, and the fair market value must be within the program threshold. As of the current BC rules, if the fair market value is $835,000 or less, a qualifying buyer may be exempt for the property transfer tax on the first $100,000 of that purchase price. There is a partial exemption if the fair market value is more than $835,000, but less than $860,000. Above that, the first-time buyer PTT exemption is gone. That's the part many buyers miss. What that means in plain English, even I was confused in that. If you are a first-time home buyer in BC, you do not automatically avoid property transfer tax. In today's market, a lot of the homes in the Okanagan are above the thresholds. So while the GST rebate conversation can still be relevant on new construction up to $1.5 million, the first-time buyer property transfer tax exemption is much tighter. That means some buyers may get a strong GST break on a new condo or a townhouse, but they still need to understand separately whether they qualify for the PTT relief. And many detached buyers will find that PTT exemptions do not apply at all. Okay, let's put both of these taxes together. This is where the real strategy comes in. A lot of buyers think, oh, I'm a first-time home buyer, so I probably don't have to pay these taxes. That is way too simplistic. The better question is, which taxes apply to this specific property? And what do I actually qualify for? Because a new build could trigger GST, but may qualify for a GST rebate. A purchase in BC could trigger property transfer tax, but you may not qualify for the first-time buyer exemption if the value is too high. So, you cannot just use the phrase first-time buyer and assume the tax bill disappears. If I were advising a first-time home buyer, I'd say this. If you're already planning to buy new and you're under $1 million, then this rebate could be very meaningful. However, if you're between $1 million and 1.5, run the math carefully. Talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer, because the benefit is shrinking. If you're looking for detached new construction in the Okanagan, do not assume the headline numbers are going to apply to you. And if you're counting on skipping the property transfer tax too, make sure that you're actually qualifying under the BC first-time homebuyers rules, because that exemption cuts out much sooner than many people think. So yes, overall, this new GST rebate is real, and yes, it can absolutely help. Hey, we're gonna take free money. But the strongest benefit here is really under $1 million, mostly on the property types where the first-time buyers can actually still realistically buy new. And on the BC property transfer tax side, first-time buyers relief still exists, but it's not nearly as broad as people tend to think it is. So before you assume you are saving a ton in tax, make sure you know which tax you're talking about. Know whether the property actually qualifies and whether the incentive is actually helping you in your strategy or quietly distorting it. Because right now, some buyers are so focused on what they might save in tax, they're not actually paying enough attention to what they may be overpaying for in the home itself. And if you think being a first-time home buyer means you don't pay property transfer tax either, well, that's a whole nother conversation. The buyers who think they're saving the most might actually be overpaying the most just to get that GST benefit.